Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivaradari. Okay, it's Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivaradari. Yashodanandana Brajajana Ranjana. Yashodanandana Brajajana Ranjana. Yamuna Tira Vanachahari. Yamuna Tira Vanachahari. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunjabi Hari. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunjabi Hari. Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivaradari. Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivaradari. Yashodanandana Brajajana Ranjana. Yashodanandana Brajajana Ranjana. Yashodanandana Brajajana Ranjana. Yamuna Tira Vanachahari. Yamuna Tira Vanachahari. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunjabi Hari. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunjabi Hari. Jai Om Vishnu Pad Paramahamsa Priyajakacharya Asto Taratata Shri Śrimad Nityalila Pravista Om His Divine Grace Abhay Charanarvinda Bhaktivedanta Swami Maharaj ISKCON's BBD founder Acharya Jagadguru Bhadita Bhavana Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai Ananta Koti Vaishnava Ki Jai Grantaraj Śrimad Bhāgavatam Ki Jai Yugadharma Shri Harinam Sankirtan Yagna Ki Jai Shri Shri Radha Govinda Ki Jai Gaur Premanandi. All glories to the assembled devotees, all glories to the assembled devotees, all glories to the assembled devotees. Gaur Premanandi. Nama Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prastaya Bhutale Srimate Bhakti Vedanta Swami Iti Namane Namaste Sarasvati Deve Gauravani Pacharane Nirvashesha Sunyavadi Paskita Deshitarane. I offer my respectful obeisances unto His Divine Grace, Srila A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada, who is very dear to Lord Krishna, on this earth, having taken shelter at the feet of the Transcendental Lord, Obeisances unto you, O spiritual master, O servant of Srila Saraswati Goswami. You are so kindly preaching the message of Lord Sri Chaitanya Dev and are delivering these Western countries which are filled with impersonalism and voidism. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Narayanam Namaskritya Naram Chaiva Narottamam Devim Sarasvatim Vyasam Tito Jayam Otirayet Nastapareshu Bhadreshu Nityam Bhagavata Sevaya Bhagavati Uttama Shloke Bhaktir Bhagavati Naishtaki. Śrimad Bhāgavatam, Canto 3, Chapter 32, Entanglement in Fruitive Activities, beginning with verse 39, going forward. Naitat kalayo padisen, navi nitaya karhichit, na stabdaya na vinaya, Naiva Dharma Tvajaya Cha. Lord Kapila Dev continued, this instruction is not meant for the envious, for the agnostics, or for persons who are unclean in their behavior, nor is it for hypocrites, or for persons who are proud of material possessions. Text 40. Na lolu payopadisen na griharudha chetase naba ktataya cha me Jatu na mad bhakta tvisam api na lolupayopadisen na griharuda chetase na bhaktaya chame jatu namad bhakta dvisam api na lolupayupadisen na griharuda chetase na bhaktaya chame jatu namad bhakta dvisam api na lolupayopadisen na griharuda chetase na bhaktaya chame jatu na namad bhakta dvisam api. Please chant. Ladies. Na, not lolupaya, to the greedy. Upadi said, one should instruct. Na, not kriya aruda cheta say, to one who is too attached to family life. Na, not abhaktaya, to the non-devotee. Cha, and may, of me. Jatu, ever. Na, not. Mat, my. Bhakta, devotees. Dvisam, to those who are envious of. Api, also. It is not to be instructed to persons who are too greedy and too attached to family life, nor to persons who are non-devotees and who are envious of the devotees and of the personality of Godhead. Purport by His Divine Grace, Srila Prabhupada. Persons who are always planning to do harm to other living entities are not eligible to understand Krishna consciousness and cannot enter into the realm of transcendental loving service to the Lord. Also, so-called disciples who become submissive to a spiritual master most artificially with an ulterior motive. They also cannot understand what Krishna consciousness or devotional service is. Persons who, due to being initiated by another sect of religious faith, do not find devotional service as the common platform for approaching the Supreme Personality of Godhead, also cannot understand Krishna consciousness. We have experienced that some students come to join us, but because of being biased in some particular type of faith, they leave our camp and become lost in the wilderness. Actually, Krishna consciousness is not a sectarian religious faith. It is a teaching process for understanding the Supreme Lord and our relationship with Him. Anyone can join this movement without prejudice, but unfortunately, there are persons who feel differently. It is better, therefore, not to instruct the science of Krishna consciousness to such persons. Generally, materialistic persons are after some name, fame, and material gain. So if someone takes to Krishna consciousness for these reasons, he will never be able to understand this philosophy. Such persons take to religious principles as a social decoration. They admit themselves into some cultural institution for the sake of name only, especially in this age. Such persons also cannot understand the philosophy of Krishna consciousness. Can I see the 12th canto? A tall person can reach very highly for it there. Especially in this age, joining for the sake of name only. Such persons also cannot understand the philosophy of Krishna consciousness. Even if one is not greedy for material possessions, but is too attached to family life, he also cannot understand Krishna consciousness. Superficially, such persons are not very greedy for material possessions, but they are too attached to wife, children, and family improvement. When a person is not contaminated by the above-mentioned faults, yet at the ultimate issue is not interested in the service of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, or if he is a non-devotee, he also cannot understand the philosophy of Krishna consciousness. Om Jnana Timirandasya Jananjana Shalakaya Chakshur Unmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. Shri Chaitanya Manobishtam Stapitam Yena Bhutale Svayam Rupa Kadamayam Datati Svapadantikam Vandeham Shri Guru Shuta Padakamalam Shri Gurun Vaishnavamscha Shri Rupam Sagujatam Sahagana Raghunathan Vitam Tam Sajivam Sadvaitam Savadutam Parijana Sahitam Shri Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padan Sahagana Lalita Shri Vishakavitamscha Hey Krishna Karuna Sindhu Dina Bandho Jagatpate Gopisha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namostute Tapta Kanchana Gaurangi Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Vrishabhanu Sute Devi Pranamami Hari Priye Panchakalpatarubhyascha Kripasindhubhya eva cha patitanam pavanebhyo vaishnavebhyo namo namaha. Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shri Vasadi Gaur Bhaktivinoda. Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. Divyadvindaranya Kalpajugada Śrimad Ratnagara Singha Sanasto Śrimad Radha Srila Govinda Devo Prastalabi Sevyamano Smarami. In a temple of jewels underneath the desire trees of Vrindavan, seated upon an effulgent throne, the divine couple Sri Radha Govinda are served lovingly by their most confidential associates. We beg to offer our respectful obeisances unto them. Na lolu payo padisen na griharuda chetase na bhaktaya chamejatu namad bhakta visam api. It is not to be instructed to persons who are too greedy and too attached to family life, nor to persons who are who are non-devotees and who are envious of the devotees and of the personality of Godhead. There's the saying, to know me is to love me. So, I say that, you say that, common people can say that, but because Krishna is the original, supreme person, of course he can say it too, but when he says it, just everything else, it's absolute. So what is the corresponding or the opposite of that, or the, anyway, whatever, the corollary, that to know me is to love me, and I know what is not to love me. So here, Krishna is pointing out searingly all different types of non-devotion. And as the perfect representative, most empowered representative, represent, authorized agent of Krishna, Srila Prabhupada is more expanding on what is all different categories of non-devotion and how to notice it, how not to be bewildered by it, how to call it out, how to understand it. Srila Prabhupada learned this very nicely from his spiritual master, Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur. We should not be humble when interacting with rascals, false pretenders, crooked and cunning cheaters, demons, no matter how they are dressed, what so-called position they have, as who they are assuming or presenting themselves to be. Lord Chaitanya said of things that are forbidden in the age of Kali, one in particular, taking of sannyas. And the anomaly of false pretenders or demoniac persons or people with demoniac intention misusing the dress and title and position of the holy renounced order was begun by Indra, who tried to steal the 100th horse, the horse from the 100th horse sacrifice being performed by the Shakti Avesh avatar Maharaj Prithu, out of envy. So it was Maharaj Prithu's son who was bewildered by the false dress of Indra. And of course, Indra, he'd practically speaking be the last personality in the Bhāgavatam you could think would be qualified to take sannyas. He was cursed at one point to have on his body because of his lustful activities. And later, by his humble submission or trying to work out a deal, they were converted to eyes. Anyway, so that's what cheaters and pretenders do. They will take the position of something that is universally respected, thinking that they'll be able to get away with their mischief. What is that old saying from vaudeville times? You can fool some of the people some of the time. You can fool most of the people most of the time, but you can't fool all of the people all of the time. And those people who won't be fooled all of the time are the devotees of the Lord, because they have proper vision and understanding to see what is what and who is who. The Mahajans, spiritual authorities, have advised that one's humility should not be made evident in front of anyone and everyone. To express one's humility in front of an atheist who is envious of Sri Guru and the Vaishnavas, in front of a demoniac person like Ravana, or in front of a pretentious Brahmana, is not Vaishnav Seva, nor is it Trinadapi Sunichena. If a person does so, he can never attain the ability to perform kirtan, chant the holy name properly, nor can he develop taste for chanting the holy names. Prabhupada begins, persons who are always planning to do harm to other living entities are not eligible to understand Krishna consciousness and cannot enter into the realm of transcendental loving service of the Lord. It is a very common experience of those who actually experience or actually receive the mercy of the Supreme Lord or his devotee, and what to speak of being able to see the Supreme Lord face to face. Prabhupada is encouraging us every day, moment to moment, and all the Shastras proclaim, and all the pure devotees and spiritual masters, that this sadhana bhakti, this practice of devotional service, will lead one to the point of meeting the Supreme Lord face to face. And Prabhupada even goes further, that you can live with him, you can dance with him, you can eat with him, you can talk with him as the most loving friend, parent, or conjugal lover. That is the potency of this Krishna consciousness movement, the potency of the holy name, the potency of His divine grace, Srila Prabhupada. So, for anyone, when Prahlad Maharaj was speaking his prayers, recorded in the Resonance of Jambudweep, offer prayers in the 5th canto, the most famous, let all envious persons be pacified by practicing bhakti yoga. They will, instead of being envious and hostile towards each other, they'll become each and everyone's well-wisher. Let there be good fortune throughout the universe. So at the conclusion of his prayers, Prahlad Maharaj says, let us never feel attraction to the prison of family life, which is the root cause of all fearfulness, anxiety, depression, despondency, etc., etc. Now, of course, in this material world, the devotees come, and their main goal, of course, is to propagate Krishna consciousness and serve the Lord in devotional service, which primarily is the main emphasis is on giving Krishna consciousness to as many living entities as possible, qualitatively and quantitatively, and at the same time, for many, that will require, by choice or by destiny, taking family life. But that family life will be very, very fruitful because pure devotees will take birth in such families and expand and continue and further the continuance of the Lord's desire and mission to liberate all living entities. So such family life is not like the family life of the envious non-devotee, but is actually a very, very favorable tool or way of pleasing the Supreme Personality of Godhead. And we see how Srila Prabhupada was so much appreciative of the children and the mothers and fathers, particularly the mothers who were taking care of these children. You say again and again, these are Vaishnavas. How is it that they could not, taking birth like this to mother and father, my disciples in the Krishna consciousness, is such a rare and an extraordinary position. Anyway, something to keep in mind. But the non-devotee, for them, family life, just like it's saying here, family improvement, make dynasties. We see how there's certain families, by their bloodline, they fit into this category of the demoniac, always plotting to harm to other living entities. They want to enslave humankind for their own, and this whole type of racial superiority and eugenics idea. Ultimately, the monarchy in Europe was overthrown because of the terrible subjugation and atrocities of these blood monarchical lines for so many centuries, thousands of years. We see in the UK, they haven't completely abolished it, but they keep it as kind of like a little, what would you call it? Token decoration. But ultimately, they have no power. So Maharaj Chichiketu, greatly attached to family improvement. And it was arranged that he be frustrated. How many millions of wives did he have? And they were all, Maharaj Chichiketu meets Anantadev, the Supreme Lord. And then finally Narada Muni and Angira Muni, they come and say, what is your problem? He tells them the problem. All right, we bless you to have a son. And that son will be the cause of your happiness and distress. Oh, I'm going to have a son. Okay, I'm going to distress. Okay, whatever the distress is, but I'm going to have a son. Thought, okay, maybe he's going to be a bad son, or he's going to be mischievous, this and that. But I have a son. I have an heir to my throne. Little did he know that the son would die in babyhood or infancy by being poisoned by the co-wives who were all barren. Anyway, so ultimately, in his lamentation, it led him to take the devotional service. He became purified, so much so that he meets the Supreme Personality of Godhead face to face. And in his prayers, he's realizing the purity and supremacy and glory of pure devotional service. And in comparison to everything and everything else, he says, being full of contradictions, all forms of religion but Bhagavat Dharma work under conceptions of fruit of results and distinctions of you and I and yours and mine. The followers of Śrimad Bhāgavatam have no such consciousness. They are all Krishna conscious, thinking they are Krishna's and Krishna is theirs. Certain groups go out there, excuse me, are you this? Are you Jewish? Are you Jewish? You're not Jewish? We want nothing to do with you. Are you Jewish? Oh, my brother, my sister here, shake this lemon and wrap this thing around you, and like, oh, my brother, everyone else, Goyish cup, like you just, in the deep original writings that everyone who's not Jewish, they're like cattle, and they're meant to be controlled and like manipulated by us, and for example. Persons who, due to being initiated by another sect of religious faith, do not find devotional service as a common platform for approaching the Supreme Personality of Godhead also cannot understand Krishna consciousness. There are other low-class religious systems which are contemplated for the killing of enemies. It says clearly in the Quran that those who are not in our faith, they should be killed with the sword. Wonderful. Nice religion. But such religious systems, being full of passion and envy, are impure and temporary. Because they are full of envy, they are full of irreligion. What are the symptoms of the age of Kali? That which is actually religious is persecuted as irreligion, and vice versa. Let's have a little taste here. Where is it? Anyway, one will be accepted as a religious mentor if he's simply expert at juggling words. We see how psychologists, they've analyzed all these different types of envious, non-devotional activities, different types of narcissism, sociopath, gaslighting, but this is all symptomatic of envious, demoniac, non-devotional control and manipulation techniques. Bhagavat Dharma has no contradictions. Conceptions of your religion and my religion are completely absent from Bhagavat Dharma. Everyone must surrender to Krishna. That is the pure conception of religion. Whatever God orders constitutes religion. In Bhagavad Dharma, there is no question of what you believe and what I believe. Everyone must believe in the Supreme Lord and carry out his orders. Prabhupada is lecturing, I believe this is in UK, Edinburgh. Kishore Das is speaking Prabhupada's visit to Scotland. And somebody stands up and says, in the Baha'i faith, it is said, and Prabhupada, at this time, he didn't listen, excuse me, we're not speaking of Baha'i. If you look up Baha'i faith, there was some nonsense person who they thought was God and, whatever, and some years ago. It kind of tinged the hippie movement a little bit here in the United States in the 60s, but anyway. We're speaking about Krishna. Krishna says. We're not speaking here what Baha'i says, Baha'i faith. And 2 times and 3 times, then finally, by the weight of Prabhupada's insistence that we're just speaking what Krishna says, the person was defeated. Bhagavad Dharma is the best of all religious systems because those who follow Bhagavad Dharma are not envious of anyone. Pure Bhagavatas, pure devotees invite everyone without envy, just like the purport says. We invite everyone to come, but unfortunately, different persons have a different idea. We have experience that some of our students come to join us, but because of being biased in some particular type of faith, they leave our camp and become lost in the wilderness. That faith can also be in science. There was one disciple, Purushottam, who was accompanying Srila Prabhupada to his triumphant coming to London for the first time in September 1969, meeting the Beatles and just all the wonderful things, staying in John Lennon's mansion in Tittenhurst. And because he took exception to Prabhupada's decrying the falsity of the Apollo moon landing by NASA in the United States, he couldn't believe that version. He left Krishna consciousness in Prabhupada because of that. A devotee is therefore exactly like the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Suridam Sarvabhutanam. He is the best friend of all living entities. Therefore, this is the best of all religious systems. Whereas so-called religions are meant for a particular type of person who believes in a particular way, or we all have the same body or racial, only Hindus are allowed to see Jagannath in Jagannath Puri. All others will be beaten with bamboo sticks and shoes. Such discrimination has no place in Krishna consciousness. If we scrutinize the religious system meant for worship of demigods or anyone else but the Supreme Personality of Godhead, we will find that they are full of envy and therefore impure. In his ecstasy, Chitraketu continues, how can a religious system that produces envy of oneself and of others be beneficial for oneself and for them? What is auspicious about following such a system? What is actually to be gained? By causing pain to one's own self due to self-envy, and by causing pain to others, one arouses your anger and practices irreligion. My dear Lord, one's occupational duty is instructed in Śrimad Bhāgavatam and Bhagavad Gita according to your point of view. Answers by citing the Lord's version. This is surrender. Now I have lost my composure due to miserly weakness. Friendly talks are done. I am accepting you as the spiritual master. Kindly instruct me. Your point of view, which never deviates from the highest goal of life. Those who follow their occupational duties under your supervision, being equal to all living entities, moving and non-moving, and not considering high and low are called Aryans. Such Aryans worship you, the Supreme Personality of Godhead. So as we were saying, Srila Prabhupada is more deeply elucidating. Generally, what does generally mean? Generally means generally, right? Generally, materialistic persons are after some name, fame, and material gain. So if someone takes to Krishna consciousness for these reasons, he will never be able to understand this philosophy. So there's the story Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati tells called Balam Rice and Cow Ghee. Does anyone know this story? It's in the book Upakhana Upadesh, Instructive Stories. Once there was a landlord, Zamindar, and he met one of his equal contemporary Zamindar friends, and he was asked, how's it going? Saying, I'm having trouble keeping workers on the land because they're just not willing to surrender more and do the necessary work. They just want to do light, as little hours as possible, and just I just can't get the work done. What should I do? And so his friend told him, what you do, you feed them the highest quality basmati rice and first-class cow ghee for 6 months, and don't ask them to do anything more than what they want to do. Okay? Then after 6 months, you can gradually increase the workload, bringing it to the standard that is required, and you'll see what happens. Okay. So he follows that advice, and at the 6-month point, he says, okay, now, here we go. And then some of the workers and servants, they complained. Some of them even left. And after a short time, the ones that left came back. And the Zamindar said, why have you come back? Well, because we love you, and we miss you, like this and that, and we'll do the work. So it worked. So then the landlord met the friend that gave the advice, and his friend asked him, so how's it going? And he just cried out in great joy, all glories to Balam rice and cow ghee. The moral of the story, or the purport, is that no one wants to stay steadfastly in the association of devotees in the spiritual master's institution and perform the required devotional service without proper name, fame, recognition, adoration, and distinction. So the benevolent spiritual master who knows that only Krishna consciousness and devotional service can save everyone, he arranges for different types of name and fame and titles and positions and honors for such attached disciples to keep them within the family of Krishna consciousness somehow or another. So Prabhupada has described that an actual pure devotee, he performs his devotional service without the slightest desire for elevation to a higher status of life. In describing Mahatma Vidura, who was Yamaraj, cursed to become a Sudra because of what was perceived to be an injudicious decision on his part. Yamaraj is understood to be the greatest judicial personality because he has to make such proper decisions for the sinful living entities, for their punishment and rectification. But of course, it was an opportunity for Yamaraj to take part in the Bhoma Leelas of the Lord and be actually a family member of Krishna, distant nonetheless. But anyway, so the Prabhupada says sometimes the Lord and his devotees have to play the part of lowly creatures, and Varaha becoming a boar, hog, the hog incarnation. And Vidura, Yamaraj's Vidura, worked very hard to preach Krishna consciousness and delivered the most materialistic, attached person, Dhritarashtra. Generally, materialistic persons are after some name, fame, and material gain. So if someone takes to Krishna consciousness for these reasons, he will never be able to understand his philosophies. Prabhupada's expertise, Madhu Dwis Prabhu, he's in his memory, he's saying that both he and Tamal Krishna Maharaj were in the Lasyanga temple Tamal Krishna Maharaj was the president, but Madhu Dwis was a very dynamic personality with great leadership abilities, and the two of them would get into fights with each other. And it got to Prabhupada's attention, and Prabhupada, he said, well, Madhu Dwis, how would you like to go to New Jagannath Puri, San Francisco, become the temple president, and be in charge of Rath Yatra? Jai Srila Prabhupada. So Madhu was saying, we both wanted to be leaders. We both were wanted to be the boss. So Prabhupada made an expert arrangement. And Rath Yatra, 1967 on a flatbed truck, 1968 on a Jayananda and Shyamasundar made this very interesting Rath Yatra cart, which was like circles, several circle-like domes, bigger than 1967, but relatively small. 1969 bigger, but then the most triumphant and grandest Rath Yatra to date, 1970, Madhu Dwis was in charge of. And it was so grand that Prabhupada gave a very rare mercy to him, that he hugged him very close to his body and rubbed him up and down when asked by Madhu Dwis, kneeling at Prabhupada's car, how did you like it? He said, I loved it. And devotees were just astounded, and Prabhupada loved Madhu Dwis so much, even he gave up his sannyas, and he was ostracized and humiliated by his godbrothers, but Prabhupada corrected that and embraced him again and said, it doesn't matter, you serve Krishna in every... Anyway, so we have tendencies like that, but by the steering and by the alchemical turning of sand into gold potency of the spiritual master, those desires are purified, all the while used in propagating this Krishna consciousness movement. So these verses, Krishna is saying what is not, and the chapter will conclude with two very nice verses tomorrow. This instruction should be imparted to the spirit by the spiritual master to persons who have taken the Supreme Personality of Godhead as more dear than anything. We're not envious of anyone, we're perfectly cleansed, and who have developed attachment from that which is outside the purview of Krishna consciousness. Anyone who once meditates upon me with faith and affection, who hears and chants about me, surely goes back home, back to Godhead. Any questions or comments? Adai Pran Prabhu.
Hare Krishna. You were mentioning about different religions, and I was just reading this book by Govinda Dasi.
Book by who?
By Govinda Dasi.
Govinda Dasi? Sandalwood and Roses, okay.
And there's a pastime there where Srila Prabhupada is speaking at a church, I believe, and then and this boy named Peter is speaking to Prabhupada, and Prabhupada is preaching, and Prabhupada's conclusion was, we have our own disciplic succession coming from Krishna, and we follow our own spiritual master. We are not, in one sense, we follow the teachings of Christ, but we're not followers of Christ. And then this boy Peter was so affected that he joined the movement for some time. Then he became Then he became a Seventh-day Adventist minister. So in that way, Srila Prabhupada preached that we are just followers of Krishna. But then in the Science of Circularization, there's that whole conversation of Christ and Christos and Krishna. So my question is that how far should we go when we're discussing other religions to make it relatable to Krishna consciousness?
Time, place, person, and circumstance. Seventh-day Adventists are vegetarian, aren't they?
Yeah.
So, Prabhupada speaking at the Franciscan Seminary in Melbourne, or in the countryside in 1974. Charu Prabhu, who of course is now in Utah, he was there at the time, and people were just, those men were so deeply affected, and they joined in the Sankirtan and the Kirtan afterwards with great enthusiasm. Also in this Chitraketu section, it was describing how so-called religions killing animals, killing thousands and millions of animals in the name of religion. What type of religion is this? And that was Prabhupada's main point to the Christians. And Cardinal Delnu in Paris, Yogeshwar, explains that he was very progressive for his time. He was very much encouraging to the youth of France at the time, who were just giving up anything to do with the Catholic Church, and in his legacy is very favorable. But the man could not get this point, that animals have souls and they shouldn't be killed. He just couldn't get it. And Prabhupada, you want to go on to higher topics of, love and peace and brotherhood, and Prabhupada would not let them, you have to stick to this point. There were two of Prabhupada's disciples, who was it? I forget her name. That Prabhupada was doing this to demonstrate, to reveal to us that these persons, they're presenting themselves as religion. The bishop of the Catholic Church for France, that's a very high position. But just look at the caliber of this person. It's very eye-opening and revelatory. The persons that seemingly are respectable and in a high position, but they're this is the symptom of Kali Yuga. One will be taken as a religious person just because of the dress that he wears or the title that he has. It's the symptoms. So here we're speaking amongst ourselves, but if we're giving a public class and or preaching to an individual. But again, we have to detect where is the sincerity. Like we see, especially when we're Atlantic Avenue in the wintertime, because it's so many Orthodox Jews live very close by and they're coming through on the train. We see how they're attracted to the kirtan, but we would try to approach it, oh no, I'm Jewish, I can't. But they're because they're performing austerity and they're in their own way. So human society needs massive purification in this very contaminated age of Kali, and it's our responsibility to give it. Philosophy for the classes, and the holy name for the masses. No hard and fast rules, no philosophy, no instruction, just the holy name of Krishna. Just Krishna and his potencies and his entire everything coming in the form of the holy name to benedict the fallen people of this age. Hare Krishna. Thank you very much. Grantaraj Śrimad Bhāgavatam ki jai. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Shri Radha Govinda ki jai. Nitai Gaur Premanandi. Hare Krishna.